have been a Toastmaster since February 2009, and this is my second year of being an area director. And it has just been an amazing journey. The bio that was shared about myself, my name is Michelle Brown. I was a Brown. I married a Brown. I didn't put that in the bio, but I wanted to give a shout out to young May because she did such a fabulous job with those bios. I know she's not here, but I would love her to hear that if she listens to this recording. I also wanted to share that my go-to motto is use your tools, and we'll share that as we go through things today. I am a champion of learning. I love virtual everything. I have virtual training tools up my sleeves long before COVID, and that has been really what I love. But today we're focusing on hybrid meetings and how we can do some of those. First, I want you to take a look at this visual. Anybody know what that is? You're seeing my agenda now.
Hybrid car.
It's a hybrid car. Thank you. Yes. And that's exactly it. Today, let's take a look at it. Does anybody own a hybrid car? While we're doing this, we're going to go ahead and use our tools. And I want you to go ahead, raise your hand if you own a hybrid car. If you're looking into it, considering a hybrid car, give me a thumbs up. You should see those tools at the bottom of your screen. If you're considering it, investigating anywhere else, feel free to use any of those other emoticons. I don't know if anyone in Zoom knows, but all the way to the right of that emoticon list, there's 3 dots, and there's a ton more of emoticons. So feel free to get emotional throughout our time together today. And also feel free to share in the chat. Rhonda, you were saying that let everyone know the format. I want you to feel free. I loved, Renee, that you allowed people to share throughout the session, and I would love it to be exactly the same way. Share in the chat and all of that. So I see we have some chats now, and I just want to make sure, see if, all right, good. I see electric and, oh, somebody loves their Prius. Oh, awesome. So that's really, I wanted you to share that. And the reason we're all coming from different places. And that's really with a hybrid vehicle, taking a look at that. It's the same with hybrid meetings. We're all coming into this from different angles. Some of us may not even know what a hybrid meeting is. Some may have dabbled and had an experiment meeting, and then others may be already having hybrid meetings, but are just looking for tips to make them better and to improve. And I would just say, I truly welcome questions, comments. This hybrid club meeting topic is something that it's just going to be something that continues. And I've already written down hybrid meeting slash activity ideas, because there's definitely some, but I didn't build them in this presentation. So just know that. Okay, so here we go. We're going to jump right in. I want you to put your seatbelts on, fasten up, get ready to go, and hopefully my slides. The objectives, I have 5 objectives I want to get through today. And again, for those that aren't sure what hybrid is, let's go ahead. And I see already in the chat, hybrid means, thank you, Sarah, in person and virtual simultaneously. Correct. Yes. And I have a fun visual. We'll talk a little bit through that just so we're on the same page specific to Toastmaster meetings. And then the next goal will be roles and responsibilities, on-site and online location needs. We'll talk about hybrid meeting scheduling options that continue to evolve. And then I save the best practices for last. So we'll go through a couple best practice and really talk through facilitating hybrid meetings successfully. All right. So for in-person online meetings, you got it. Sarah, you nailed it right there. A hybrid meeting is really combining the two, but it's not easy, right? So when I think about hybrid meetings, it's combining that experience so that we both have the same or similar welcoming experience. And as Renee was talking about culture, the culture needs to be present in both of those, right? Which cannot always be that easy. When we think about online meetings, we're in one today, right? We've learned, again, we've talked about what that means. Some of us had to learn how to use it, and we want to return to in person, but letting go of the good things that we learned and allowing others in, having that connectivity, that's really combining the two. So when it is well done, a hybrid club meeting truly connects an in person with an online and builds that bridge so that it can be a successful meeting. I would ask, is everyone on board with what a hybrid meeting is? Any questions there? Anybody want to share anything before we jump into our next objective? So far, so good. My Zoom that I use at work, I actually have green checks. So I had that as a plan, but we don't have green checks. So feel free to be sharing in the chat. All right. So I think it sounds like we were already on board with the what. So now we want to take a look at our second destination and who is involved in these meetings. We have some interesting folks added in, and you'll see it's broken out. If we start at the very top, you have to have someone that has some technology background physically in the room. And we're going to talk about the where next, but just from a person standpoint, you need that technical person to manage the room, be working the camera, the podium, audio, all of that, as well as making sure we're connecting with online members. And that is oftentimes the sergeant at arms. I happen to be that person for my club, Philly Forum. It doesn't have to be the sergeant at arms. It may be someone that's a club member that really is technical and wants to be there in the room. Or it could be somebody for corporate clubs if there's somebody within the organization that runs that type of technical know-how. And then to the left and the right are the actual rooms themselves, right? So in person, the people in the room, as we return to those meetings, you have your officers. They're there, they're meeting everyone, they're walking in, they're greeting, it's welcoming, it's wonderful. And members, you have guests packets, whatever's happening. But those are the who that we always had in the room. You have to have that same thing going on online. So the term that a lot of people use is host or co-host. And I see in the chat, Al, during the pandemic, we went from in-person to Teams virtual and added members from 2 other states. Perfect. That's a perfect example. Thank you, Al. And with that being said, so we have the in-person, we have the room, we have the online connection. Who, right? Very specifically, you see 2 meeting roles listed. It's important in a hybrid meeting. And hopefully you've recognized, I would say I've been in some really great hybrid meetings, and thank you, Mary Ruth. She said Keller, Texas has the best hybrid meeting she's ever been to. And that's absolutely one of my recommendations. Get out there and attend them, right? So you can learn what works and what doesn't work. I recently was at an amazing hybrid meeting, and they're just now working through it. And you couldn't see the timer physically in the room. The podium was here. So the camera, you could see the podium, you heard the speakers, it was lovely, but the timer sat in the back of the room. The camera pointed there. So you didn't see the actual timer. They were actually flipping cards. So in a hybrid meeting, you really want to think about that role. And I have to ask Mary, how does the timer work in the Keller, Texas hybrid meeting? If you don't mind me asking, you can send it in the chat or shout it out.
They had a light, but they had, excuse me, they had 2 cameras set up. So you saw the audience and you saw the speaker.
Absolutely. That is the perfect setup. Now, not everybody uses those timer machines are pretty cool, right? But having 2 cameras so that you get both sides of the room for those online folks is key to the setup, and we'll get there. But thank you for adding that. And let's see, Kimberly, what did she say? Thankful one of your officers is an IT. Yes, sometimes our clubs get lucky, right? So thank you for calling that out. The second role is the speech evaluator. So as you are considering hybrid or working through this hybrid model, the speech evaluator needs to see the speaker, right? So depending on whether they're in person or online, whether it's the speaker or the evaluator, you really need to ensure that they can see that, right? And we're going to talk through the how in a minute. All right, so those are the who. Then we move into the where. And it seems really simple to say, well, they're in person or they're online, but this is probably the most difficult because you have to connect the two. The in-person, while it's a physical location, it has to have the technology required to connect online. And the word connectivity is bigger than all the other words because it's bigger, right? If you can't connect to those online people, you no longer have a hybrid meeting. And it also is connectivity relates to audio and your video success. So whatever that physical location is, you have to ensure that it has those opportunities available to include technology. I kept thinking of for community clubs, some have a local library, and sometimes those local libraries actually have equipment and connectivity that you can loan or borrow in whatever room that you're running or whatever the right word is. So there's those things. Physically, for corporate clubs, again, you might have a room that already has all of that in there, but it has to be in that in-person room. For community clubs, it gets a little more challenging because we need to think through what are we going to use, and we'll get to that technology momentarily. But the where, you have to pick the right location, right? So that's the in-person where. The online where is your virtual platform, and it could be Zoom, it could be Teams, it could be WebEx. There's different ones out there. Feel free to throw them in the chat if you use something other than Zoom or Teams, just to share with the group. And the only note that I had specific to this was knowing that Toastmasters reimburses for that. All right, I see Blue Jeans in there. Thank you, Juanita. There is a reimbursement program for if you are using that Zoom or whatever virtual platform. So keep that in mind. They do reimburse expenses for club meetings if they meet at least twice a month. So know that that's there and on the tmdistrict38.org website. All right. And okay. Yeah, I'm seeing in the chat. WebEx is great for your club, Shanna. Thank you. And free conference call, similar to Zoom, but less expensive. Very cool. Thank you, Mary. See, we're getting all these great tips. Awesome. We'll get into best practices of how to use some of these at the tail end of this trip. But before that, we definitely want to explore what that hybrid meeting scheduling looks like. And again, we're just kind of learning. But before we get there, just recognize that there are some things in the chat and feel free to share on the where. All right. So when is a hybrid meeting? Exactly when should you conduct a hybrid meeting? That's really up to your individual club to determine, just like meeting dates and times, right? Um, the timing, whatever's going to work out best, but just a few examples. I've heard of clubs that meet twice a month. They have hybrid for one of the meetings, and then the other meeting is either just all virtual or just in the office or in the location, whatever is working for them. And then I've heard all hybrid, right? So the one thing with that is that truly is a commitment. When we talked about the who and all those roles are needed for every single meeting. So that's kind of some clubs like to have that split between hybrid and I keep wanting to say in office, but having that in on location meeting versus virtual. Some people don't like to do the hybrid. So I would like to take a minute and ask, does anyone have another model that they're currently working outside of 2 meetings a month or everything's hybrid? Like the split 2 meetings a month, one is hybrid and one is not? Or feel free to shout out too. I would love to see your face or hear your voice. Or you're not hybrid yet, and that's why you're here. All right. Oh, they're coming in now. All right, perfect.
Our club is a hybrid, and we actually offer bi-weekly on Mondays and bi-weekly on Wednesdays for those who, just due to scheduling purposes may be able to attend on one day and not the other.
Oh, good. Now, and do you mind if I ask, did that mean that you added additional meetings to your club to do that, or were you already meeting that often?
No, they did add additional meetings. For the summer, we go to 2. Sorry. For the summer, we went down to 2 just because of vacations, and attendance is typically a little lower, but yeah, they did add.
Okay, good.
Meetings. Sorry, let me get back on.
No. That again, like I said, the when you should do it and how you should fit it into your schedule is really something that's going to evolve with the club. And as we talk through the best practices, the considerations though, and again, feel free to add anything else here. Make sure that you physically get into the room at least 20 minutes. I'm a 30-minute person myself, but get in there, get set up, bring those online folks in and get all of that going. I always recommend a connection test, whether it's earlier in the day or you're having guests or new members on a different day, just to have them test to make sure their equipment's working. We'll talk about that. And then the last consideration here is really in a hybrid meeting, providing that expectation. So for in-person, they know what it looks like and what they need to do to be heard and seen. And for online, they know what that expectation is to be heard and seen. All right. Nice. There's a lot in the chat. Now, I will say much of this content is from references, resources on Toastmaster International, and I'll share those at the end of this presentation. But there is a recipe for ideal hybrid meeting, and I would love to say that every meeting I've had has been ideal, but it's not. So, and Harry, you're saying prep time could be a challenge. Yes, for tightly booked things. So that's truly one of my tips is book that prep time, put it in the calendar, book it. Again, I'm a corporate club. We have it in there. Yes, sometimes people lag, but we get a little pushy to get in there and get things moving. The laptop, it needs to be a newer one, right? Whether it has a camera included, audio included, that connectivity is really key. So you want to make sure that all of that is working properly. And if you can have 2 laptops, as we talked, to have a video from the front of the room and the back of the room. No iffy Wi-Fi. right? Have a stable internet connection. If you can be hard plugged into the network, that is the best, right? If you're on the Wi-Fi, funny story, my Wi-Fi was being iffy and my husband had to unplug and replug our connection right before this meeting. Microphones, really just understanding. Right now, I love my headset and the microphone is the best, the clearest audio. If you're using laptop audio, it picks up other things. So you really want to think about it when you're thinking about online, but truly the in-person audio, that is the sound we'll talk about in a minute. One microphone, right? If you have additional laptops in the room or other people connecting on their smartphones, make sure they don't select the audio because that's when things get crazy and that cacophony of sound begins and it can get a little ugly. So limit the microphone usage in the room and make sure if folks in the room can use a headset. I like to call it the grassy knoll, the second laptop that we use as the sergeant at arms. I will sit with my headset and my microphone and I can hear what the folks are hearing online and I can see what's happening in person. So if I need to mute anybody or deal with anything, make sure that all that audio is working. It's not reverbing in the room, in the in-person room. Video, we talked about having two, being able to see the front of the room as well as the second view, whether you do from the side or straight to the back. That's really helpful for those that are online. And then the sound, just make sure before you get started and perhaps throughout the meeting, just check in. Can everyone hear me? So I'll do that. Can everyone still hear me? Anyone?
Yep.
Thank you.
Make it here.
Perfect. And then the display. So again, ask, can everyone see? Are you seeing my slides? Sometimes folks are sharing or they think they're sharing. Has anyone ever been in one of those meetings where they're talking, and then they say, oh, wait, you're not seeing my slides, right? So if somebody's responsible to make sure that everyone can see what is supposed to be seen, that is a beautiful thing. Okay, I'm going to get really quiet, and this is where I want you to listen up. If you only hear one thing today from me, audio is everything. And I almost said audio is king, but you used a king phrase, Renee, so I'm glad I didn't. But in that room, this is what I'm talking about. All in-person audio devices should be not used, right? If somebody wants to connect their smartphone just to see what it looks like for the people online, just don't select the audio. There's no reason for them to connect audio because they're sitting in the room, right? That's when that crazy echo feedback happens. Also, if two devices get too close to each other, so if you had two laptops connected and they were sitting side by side, that could also create some audio issues. I already mentioned the audio monitoring for the headset. Mute participants, depending on the tool you're using. I don't know, some of these I'm not familiar with, but I'm hoping that, there we go, that you have some way to mute participants and whoever is monitoring that virtual connection, those that are online, they should have permissions to be able to mute people. Unfortunately, sometimes that happens, right? And I'm sorry, I'm just looking at the chat. All right, let's see. Are the cameras on the computer or are they standalone? That's an awesome question. It really depends on the laptop. Some of the cameras are way better than others. And although I have seen the tripods, and there's actually in one of the resources that I'll share at the end, there is a video that shows a tripod with a camera setup, and that's what they were recommending. It's really specific to what you have available, what you can afford. And then I see that, thank you, Mary. The standalone cameras are the best because they're flexible, right? You can move them around. That's what you mean. All right. All right. So the last thing, the mute upon entry setting, again, depending on what you're using, there's a tool that or a setting that when folks come in, you can actually mute them so they don't have a chance to speak. The only thing I wanted to mention was be careful when you mute people, because in some of the tools, they can't unmute themselves. And then you've left them voiceless, and that's not fun either. Right. So, well, and we will talk about that. Before we jump into that, the real life tips, these are not just my stories. I asked some clubs and Valley Forge Toastmasters, shout out to them for sharing that they have had great success. And they really were encouraging that they have a lot of folks joining in the office, just a few that are joining remotely. But one of the tips that was shared from a club was let people know the cameras are there to be inclusive in the hybrid meeting with the people that are online and get the folks in the room comfortable with the cameras, which I thought was a great tip. And I'm seeing, oh, look at that. Camera on a tripod to stream their feature table on Facebook. Very cool. That is a great idea. And maybe it's a combination, again, with the two of having a camera on a tripod and a laptop as that second video. And the large screen TV, the recommendation from this club was that they had all of the folks that are online joined on a large television. So you felt like they were right there in the room. So that's something to consider if you have a large screen or can project them or something like that to make them feel seen in the room. And the last was the 2 laptops, one where you're viewing the audience, one where you're viewing the podium. And like I said, I don't know if anyone wants to share success or failures, but depending on if you're seeing the side of the podium or the side of the room, it really depends on where it's placed, right? But giving those that are online that complete visual is really important. I was actually in a meeting a few days ago and people were talking for a solid 10 minutes and I couldn't see. All I saw was a camera that was focused on a chair, an empty chair, nobody there. That was not a fun meeting. So keep that in mind. You want to make sure that you're connecting with everybody. And this is pulling it together, safety first, right? When we talk about successful hybrid meetings, we really have to get back to where are you physically, right? Safety, whatever those local guidelines are, you have to abide by what they are and keep an eye on what the plan is for in-person gatherings. And as things change, know how that's going to impact whatever room you're in. But we want to be safe, right? And then that's all about the meeting location. So not just the safety guidelines, but again, thinking about, can we fit safely in whatever this room is? So keep that strong internet connection and the technology that's needed. I've said that more than once. From a requirement standpoint, it really helps to be successful. The more technology and the more you have people comfortable with that technology, you're going to be successful. And the more you get through and try these hybrid meetings, everyone's going to learn and grow, and all they can do is get better. That list actually says TV, phone, tablet, laptop. I am not saying to use a phone, tablet, or laptop for that main connection. I'm saying have an awareness that folks may want to connect just by the phone, just by a tablet, just by a laptop. So you want to know what are the requirements. If whatever tool you're using doesn't work for tablets, or your club is not going to take in folks that are just joining by the phone where we can't see them. Maybe they're just listening and they're joining, but are they going to be giving a speech and only be on the phone? Those are things, again, that from an online standpoint you want to consider. But folks, as a hybrid meeting, it's all about practice and preparation, right? So not just what we have learned during COVID and how to have a virtual meeting, but practicing having both in the room, testing the technology, having people in the room. Audio is really one of the biggest things you want to test. The audio in the room when everybody's talking and having conversations, how do you manage that? And be prepared to troubleshoot any of those types of options or issues. And then virtual guests. What is the plan? How do you greet them? How do you know that they're there? And just have a plan there. The last thing is just adjustments and accommodations. I can't say it enough that you're going to learn. You're going to improve. Some things may not work. I would say, just like we had today, have a chat monitor, somebody that's keeping an eye on the chat to make sure that people don't get forgotten. Have somebody in the room versus somebody online that are in the same role. So if you're voting, there's how are you going to handle it, the room versus how you're going to handle it, right? And sorry, I'm just checking the chat. The last thing, and Renee, you mentioned surveys. Get feedback, right? Ask them and be very specific that you're receiving information from someone that was in person versus someone that was online, but ask them the same questions. Was this a successful meeting? Did you get what you were expecting to get? Whew. All right, we're getting to the end. So this is a list. I want you to take a look. Dare to prepare. And I've seen in the chat, preparation is everything, right? So just take a look and we'll quickly review what some of these items are. Some I've mentioned and some I just want to add a little to. Testing. Never assume, oh, it worked in the last meeting, right? We'll just get in there whenever. Anyone fall prey to that statement? You definitely want to get in there early and you definitely want to have a plan B or a plan C. Now, I don't know what that's going to be for you, but these are things that, again, we can all learn, together. Oh, darn it. Ignore that. I didn't get there yet. So get ahead of issues. That's really, make sure you have those folks getting in there. Power up. Don't forget the power cords or plugs, things that, again, I would ask for a show of hands or in the chat, a yes. Been there, done that. Suddenly your laptop just quits working and you're thinking, I didn't touch anything. What happened? Oh, it powered off. That's going to be a problem. And if that's the laptop that's presenting and sharing within the room, I love it. Okay. Is that Mickey? The question, why no USB? The being present, what that means is sometimes we're presenting not in our local environment. Again, community clubs, if they're going somewhere else, or like this, you're presenting to in a physical setting. You're going to officer club training physically, right? The USBs in I know in my organization, they're not welcomed because they can carry, I want to say germs, but you know what I mean? And they might not work, right? So, and I'm saying, nice. Yes. So,
I'm sorry. I thought
no,
you
that's
meant-
okay.
I was thinking like connecting a camera or a phone or a microphone using a USB connection. So I misunderstood.
Yeah,
when you
no,
said
that's good.
USBs, what you meant. Sorry.
Yes. No, it's fine. And that's exactly being prepared to present. That's what that be present is, right? Be present to present. Use universal fonts because if suddenly you need to use some other laptop, and thank you, Renee, viruses. And internet links, don't assume that you're going to be jumping all over. And yes, William, I meant flash drive. Yes, that's what I meant by USB, because not everybody is as accepting of that. And you want to be prepared. So if you can't use internet links and you're in the middle of a hybrid meeting, having screenshots as a backup is super helpful. And then the flip side to that is not that present. So making sure whatever you're sharing in the room and online, that you've turned off any pop-ups, chats, personal things that you don't wish to share with the Toastmaster community. And finally, keep moving, keep learning, keep improving. So all of this, it is important to prepare, but there's going to be something that we learn each time that we can do better each time. Oh, and this is my favorite slide. There is a lovely, quick resource on the Toastmaster International site called Hybrid Meeting Harmony. And it's really about making sure that everyone can hear in the room and online, everyone can see in the room and online, and that your speakers can speak. So that gets a little much because sometimes if you're not a speaker, maybe you want them to be muted. All right. Any thoughts on this? 3 tips for hybrid meeting? Sounds easy, right? You've seen those 3 monkeys so many times. You never thought about it with a hybrid meeting. That's your takeaway. All right. This really is my greatest concern with, thank you, Leslie, the hybrid bananas. You don't want to leave Zoombies or Teambees or whatever your other bees are, meaning, like I said, they're muted and they can't unmute. They can't see, they can't hear. When they're joining, make sure you understand, what are they using? How are they connecting? Are they tech savvy? Do you have somebody that's connecting that they've never used Zoom ever? Offer a tech test. And then also, like I said, offer tech instructions on the agenda. But and these are things we've been doing, but from a hybrid meeting standpoint, know that including those, again, is a tip off to the people in the room, a reminder of, oh yeah, that's right, there's people online. So know all of that. Now here at my club, we do a little intro. And again, as a sergeant at arms, I'll do this intro to Zoom and I'll explain how reactions work and explain how to rename their tile. And we're checking. I get to know who the guest names are and all that. So that is a good thing to do at the start of your meeting. And then I had to throw this in, Renee. In our meetings, we also do Toastmaster tidbits. So as a sergeant at arms, that's like my favorite thing to do. As a hybrid meeting, this is something you can actually have printed out materials as well as sharing links with your attendees or members. All right, that means it is time to wind down. All right. That it didn't work. Well, the best laid plans. This was supposed to be a video that counts down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So there you go. There are 5 questions to consider. So if you're sitting on the fence and you're thinking, what should I do? Here we go. Now, I didn't make a word out of this like you did, Renee, but commitment. Can your club commit to the needs of a hybrid meeting? Reliability. Does your club have the equipment and the internet access to be reliable? Logistics. Do you have those technical folks? Like in the chat, you were saying you have an IT person or, are there people that can help handle those logistics? The E, equality. What I meant by that is, can you give equal measure to both in on location and on I keep wanting to say on site, sorry, in person and online, right? So can you even that out? Is that an option for your club? And then finally, from a membership standpoint, do your members want a hybrid club? Is that what they're looking for, right? Parity. Thank you, Harry. All right, so that was 5. Now 4, similarly, what is your club's objective? Why, and what is it? Why do you want to go hybrid? Think about it, talk about it as officers. Okay, gotcha. Thank you, Vicky. I hope I'm saying that right. Is the club willing to put in extra effort? Because we just talked about, yes, this is absolutely extra effort, right? 3, will hybrid attract outside members to your club? Is that possibly one of your objectives? That's what you're trying to do. We see folks from Texas and we're having people join in from other areas. Is that what we're looking to do? Attract that to our club? And 4th, is it something the members want to do, right? All of these are fine questions. We also have 3 how to get started resources. So for those that might not have gotten started, there are 3 great resources. If you go to the Toastmasters International site and just search on hybrid meetings, these all come up together. I kind of collected them into categories. These 3, there's one for tips for running a successful meeting. We've talked about a few of those. Traditional meeting roles and what that looks like in the hybrid, and then the hybrid harmony, where we have to look at those 3, the sound quality and the visual quality within the online and in person. 2, we're almost there. So from a hybrid standpoint, to hybrid or not to hybrid, that's the question. So those 4 questions are there. They provide a little clarity and a little more meat and potatoes than what I shared today. And then the 5 questions to really help assess, is your club ready? Is this something that you want to do from a hybrid environment standpoint? 2 twos. There's also 2 technology resources, one specific to hybrid meetings about how to build that bridge. That one has a couple videos actually, when we were talking about how setups and what it looks like and should I have a camera on a stand and things like that. So I would recommend that for those that are looking for that information. And then finally, the Prepare Technology Like a Pro, that has some information with how steps to take when things don't exactly go right. And going back to Renee, with being a leader and keeping your cool, things are going to happen, right? And especially in a hybrid meeting, we have double the trouble. So you just want to keep that in mind. And there's some great tips there of just know that you're going to learn, right? So number 1 is really what is next for your club when it comes to hybrid meetings. These are the things, the how, the when, the where, the why, and the who. You need to speak with your club officers and share these questions and concerns, try them out, and don't forget to invite me because I love to attend hybrid meetings. And that is everything that I have, unless anyone has any questions for me.